Yeah. All right.
It makes it the best.
It is so great. All right, here we go. This is going to be for Friday, September 18th. So what will you learn on today's show? Well, hopefully you'll learn what it takes to reach the top. We're talking about a recent piece on the struggle of minor league baseball players, which is a lot more painful this year than it is normally. And it's normally very painful. We're doing that on today's Money with Friends, featuring thought leader Tate Frasier from the Pushin Thru podcast. Let's go. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live from my mom's half-finished basement in Palm Springs, California, where we make the Stacky Benjamin show. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
And I am Tate Frasier from Los Angeles, California, and I can't wait, Joe. I'm glad to be back.
I am glad. This is your curtain call, your final time here. I'm so sad, but we're about to have some fun because this is the podcast where we talk recent stories ripped from the financial press. Today, we're going to tackle one on minor league baseball. Not only do we read them like some podcasts, but we dive into how they affect your wallet and what you can do to invest, save, pay down debt more effectively. And if that's not enough, we'll also share a big idea at the end of the show that you can take with you to be better with money the rest of your day, all in usually less than 20 minutes. Today's show brought to you by Tiller Money. With Tiller, you can optimize your financial life in Google Sheets with fast automatic transaction imports, easy templates, and a free 30-day trial. If you need a better way to manage your money and have a budget, head to tillerhq.com/MWF. Tate Frasier here one more time. I'm crying. People listening.
Me too. I cried before I got on the air, though. It was too much.
Got it all the way. And now he's got his game face on, right?
Yeah, I'm locked in now. I'm ready to go, Joe.
Ready to go. All right. We're going to talk minor league baseball. Let's see which one of our friends is going to help us kick off today's show. All right, today's piece comes to us also from ESPN, like our piece yesterday. This is written by Anthony Elaveri, and I love this piece that Anthony wrote called Selling Stretchy Pants, Driving for Uber Without Minor League Baseball. Many players must take on second jobs. Anthony writes, when the minor league baseball season was canceled on June 30th, hundreds of players were left scrambling. Unlike their major league counterparts, minor leaguers aren't unionized or protected by federal minimum wage law. Most of them earn low pay during the season. Players in Class A made, on average, $5,800 last year and don't get compensated at all during the offseason, which means many already live below the poverty line. When I was playing in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a concession stand worker told me that teenagers in the U.S. could make more babysitting than I did playing in A-ball, said Carlos Sinuega, a pitcher in the Twins organization. Tate?
Yep. Yet Sinuega is one of the lucky ones. He still has a job for now. In May, hundreds of minor league players were released by their teams. In June, the MLB draft was shortened from 40 rounds to 5. The Twins and other MLB teams have committed to paying their minor leaguers a weekly stipend of $400 and providing benefits throughout August. But even that lifeline runs out in a few weeks. Many players have turned to More Than a Baseball, a nonprofit that has provided money and advice, among other things, to more than 1,000 minor leaguers. And at the end of September, the professional baseball agreement, which regulates the relationship between major league teams and minor league affiliates, will expire. MLB has threatened to eliminate as many as 42 minor league teams for the 2021 season, which could end the careers of hundreds of more players.
Oh, and, just imagine that, man. This is your dream. You built up to it, and through no fault of your team, your team goes under. It reminds me of, I don't remember if you remember that when the IHL blew up in hockey land. And I'm a big Kalamazoo Wings fan, being from Kalamazoo, Michigan. And when the IHL blew up and went bankrupt, you saw this similar thing happen to a lot of minor league players and nowhere to go. The reason I wanted to talk about this today, Tate, is because today's your last day on here. I don't want to talk about stretchy pants or making $5,800, but I do want to talk about what minor league players go through, this idea of chasing a dream. And your dream is not unlike a lot of dreams that a lot of people have. Mm-hmm. I want to go through the career of Tate Frasier because I find this so interesting. So in college, like these baseball players, playing baseball in college, playing baseball since they were little kids, what was your background? Was your goal to have a microphone in front of you the whole time?
Yeah. So, I mean, my story is I'm from Henderson, North Carolina, small town in North Carolina. My dad is, a coach. My mom is a teacher. First grade teacher, second grade teacher for 30 years. And my brother's 4 years older than me. My dad was my brother's baseball coach. I grew up in a baseball family, which, sprinkled out until we played basketball. We were just driving around going to tournaments everywhere. I was a sports kid my whole life, but I was also obsessed with Sports Center. Charlie Rose.
Did you think that you might one day be one of these minor league baseball players we're talking about?
Yeah, well, so I used to go to the Durham Bulls, which is,
Yeah.
Bull Durham, the movie. I used to go to the Durham Bulls camp. I used to go to Myrtle Beach Pelicans games when I was a little kid. If you've seen Eastbound and Down, they play at the Myrtle Beach Pelicans Stadium. That's where I used to go to games. Yeah, I wanted to be a Hall of my uncle played at Carolina. My great uncle played for the Orioles organization. Like I grew up wanting to be BJ Surhoff or Brady Anderson or Cal Ripken Jr. or the list goes on. I was a catcher, so Pudge Rodriguez, one of my favorite players. So I grew up in a sports family, right? I heard a lot of stories about the ABA, kind of growing up in North Carolina. I heard a lot of college basketball stories, and I love stories, right? I love telling stories. I loved hearing stories, and I was the youngest in my family. And, my mom would always say I was the boy who cried wolf because my great uncle could tell me a story about the Yankees. And when I told the story, a million other things had happened, these incredulous moments. But it was way more drama, right? It was way
You made it more exciting.
Exactly. And that was sort of like, looking back, that was probably the first time that I realized that I wanted to be somewhere in this profession. When I was in high school, I was a valedictorian, made all A's, had very strict parents, just was very locked in and focused, but I was also watched TV all the time, wanted to, write movies, write books, wanted to do all this sort of stuff. But sports was kind of my foundation, right? That was the way that I could relate and talk to, I feel like, anyone, because sports brings people together in my mind. And then when I got to North Carolina, my brother's best friend was about to graduate. My brother's 4 years older. He just graduated from Carolina. He went to ESPN. And I took over an internship at the Dave Glenn radio show. I was 18, and I was just an intern doing research, cutting tape at the end of the day, those types of things. But I got to, yeah. No, go ahead.
Want to stop right. I actually want to stop right there because I want to get in your head at that age. Because if we've got people that either have kids that are that age, or if we have some young listeners that are listening. So you're valedictorian, you love sports, but you're very creative. Like I take those three things and gel them all together. And for a lot of people, you talk about getting into a quote serious career, like becoming a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it might be. Heck, you're valedictorian, dude. You could probably get into any of those schools to do any of those things. Did you, when you went to college then, did you go immediately then into media?
I went immediately into journalism. I knew that I wanted to be so Charlie Rose was from my hometown, and I know Charlie Rose is not revered in the same way he was at the time that I was going to college.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of years ago. But at the time, he was from my hometown, and I saw that success. He went to Duke, so I had obviously, he was an enemy of mine, but he was also a success story from my small town where I could see that you could go the broadcast route and have a real story to tell because you kind of go from this area, understanding that small town world to New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago or whatever it may be. But the jumping into the radio aspect of it, I was such a fan, right? And I think that is still something that I lean on today, like that I wish I had almost as much as I did at a certain point. Because when you get into media, as you know, like you get a little bit weathered by reality, right? I mean, not everything is as like Michael Jordan to me was a mythical god. Like everything that Michael Jordan did was perfection. And then as I got older, you learn nuances of people, and you learn that not everyone's a good guy and a bad guy. It's not all that one-to-one, right? So in sports media, you have to learn that as well. And that was the biggest transition for me.
Well, and there's also the barrage of the business aspect, right? When you're a kid, hey, this is fun. The Detroit Tigers playing on TV. That's fantastic. Yep. Dad, why do they stink? Well, the reason they stink is because they're not going to dole out more money for people. And then you get into the money aspect of the sport. And sometimes that kills it for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think for me, it was like a journalist is objective, right? I mean, objectivity is subjective, but it's like I went from the David Glenn radio show. I was really close friends with James Michael McAdoo, who was on the North Carolina basketball team. He was a freshman. We were the same age. He was the #1 player in the country. One of my good friends was a manager on the basketball team. And anyways, all this was happening my freshman year. Kendall Marshall, the point guard of North Carolina, breaks his wrist going into the Elite Eight, and they're going to play Kansas. North Carolina no longer has a point guard. The world does not know this yet. I was working at the radio show. I'm friends with James Michael. James Michael tells me Kendall Marshall's not going to play. Right. So this is like one of these moments in time where it's like you're a journalist, but you're a friend and you're also a fan. Right. So there's like 3 different levels of this. So I look at James Michael and I'm like, as a journalist, this is a scoop. Like this could really be beneficial for me. But like I get the approval from him first, and I get the approval from Kendall's dad, and then I tell Inside Carolina, which is a website in North Carolina, like a scout.com website that I'd always read and wanted to work for. I give them that scoop. They vet it. They report it. ESPN picks it up. Kendall Marshall is not going to play the Elite Eight. That got me an internship with Inside Carolina. That was like my foot in the door there. And then I was a beat writer for baseball, football, and basketball.
Did you, once again, I want to slow you down, big guy, because there's so many moves there that I think that people can learn from. Number one is clearly networking is important. I mean, and from the get-go, you've known that networking, because you said, this is my friend, this is somebody else who's my friend. Like, how big has networking been through all of this stuff?
I never call it networking, right? I just had, and obviously it is networking. From where I'm from, my mom and dad, it was yes, sir, no, ma'am. Look everybody in the eye, ask them about themselves. You are second, you put people first. That was just kind of where I came from, right? And as I got into the real world, you can't always be yes, sir, no, ma'am. And you kind of find your ways to maneuver, but that was how green I was. So when I came in at 18 and I'm working at a radio station in Raleigh, the fact that someone's like, go run and get us coffee, and I'm like, yes, sir. People were a little bit, confused by that, especially, looking like I was, and I went to Carolina and I was a freshman in Carolina. So like, why does this kid want to work? I'm confused by that. And I think that was sort of a weird thing with me too. Like the conundrum of like, I don't really know what his motivation is. And my motivation was to basically be able to have a say, right? Like I would always talk about sports with all my friends, but it would always be like, okay, Tate, whatever, like you're taking it too far, whatever. And I wanted to be like, no, I am actually informed enough to have this conversation. I know the people that are involved. I will speak and get to the line. I will not cross that line. I know where that line is. I had a love for journalism and, like Murphy Brown and like the olds, like Network is like one of my favorite movies, and like The Slippery Slope and all that sort of stuff. So like I had all these like journalistic ideals that were in my head as well. So like the networking played a part into it, but the fact that I had some weird goal about actually doing journalism. And I think it's really funny because if people knew me and see the character that I play now, they're like, he's playing a fanboy. So how is he a journalist? Like what has gone wrong here? And the answer to that is I worked for Bill Simmons.
And I want to get to that next. I actually want to get to that next, but I do have one other thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is when it comes to all of this stuff. I mean, this is where the minor league baseball player piece comes in, right? Where I wanted to start with that for a reason, because you're doing all this stuff. Minor league baseball players make $5,800. When my daughter went to college, she had 2 things she was interested in. One was journalism, and the other one was becoming a neurosurgeon. We went to the Department of Labor and looked at what those 2 things pay. She immediately said, I don't want to be a journalist because they're not going to make any money. Now she's back in that area now, but she knows, like, how hard it is and how much you have to work. But did you have any idea just how slim this ladder is? Like Major League Baseball has this very slim ladder. And also, did you know how little the pay was as you go up the ladder? Don't get me wrong. Bill Simmons, I think, is doing okay.
I think what I had was delusions of grandeur would probably be the proper term of it. And I think that I had, because I came from such a small town and I was like, valedictorian, and I know that sounds a lot better than reality of it. It's just like where I'm from. I had this idea that I could go get in that top percent of the career because like I would do whatever it took, in the sense that like I'll go report that. I'll do like my ego. I was like, I don't care about my ego. I just want to be, Dan Patrick. I want to be Rich Eisen. I want to be Stuart Scott. I want to be, at ESPN in Bristol. And that was sort of like my goal. And I mean, until I graduated, that was my goal. I mean, I was I was in the top 3 to go to Bristol for the content associate program, which is like their CAP program. And I didn't get it. And that was a full-time job going out of North Carolina. And I was devastated because like I had been in broadcast journalism. My, peers that were a year older than me, 2 years older than me, 3 years old, I'd seen them all get this same gig. I thought I was in line to get that same gig, and I didn't get it. And that was the first time that I had ever had to deal with everything that I was trying to manifest was not going to happen. And it led me to taking an internship at Grantland, which is Bill's former website at ESPN, and deciding to drive across the country for an internship that was going to pay me, I can't even remember how horrible the pay was, but it wasn't enough to live in Los Angeles. And I was driving Uber on the side, right? But like and I was couch surfing. Like that was how drove my car out there. I was driving Uber, and then I was couch surfing. And I knew that I was going to do that for 5 months. And then I was going to hopefully get offered a PA job or something at the end of that 5-month period. I was going to try to earn that. And then it turns out at the end of 5 months, Bill Simmons called me on a Friday and said, "Do you want to be my podcast producer?" Because I had gone over to his house and delivered all of his things after he got fired. So it's like, I had these like windows of time where I was like, I can do this for a certain amount of time. And if it didn't work, like let's say I was at Grantland and Grantland folded and I didn't get hired by Bill Simmons and I was just flat on my back in LA, who knows? Like, I don't know if I would have gone into more of a news or political realm or whatever it may be, but or I would have just, kept sports myself and said, I need to go back to school. My brother's a lawyer. Maybe I would go be a lawyer. Like you said, I mean, it's not the, like my parents have looked at me like I'm crazy the whole time. Like when I said I was going to drive to Los Angeles for an internship, when I had a job offer in Charlotte, that's a real job. That's not necessarily the smartest decision. But I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, I'm very fortunate in the sense that like I have been able to I worked in college, so I made money. So I had some money too. That was saved up a little bit. So I mean, it's like it's all decisions that are made over like a time period. I gave myself like a certain amount of window, right? Like I would do this for a certain amount of time. And I think trying to map it out in your head, and also trying not to try not to be so hard on yourself, because like it is, like you said, it's a sliver, and it's not because of the work. It's not because of anything. I'm very fortunate that I got a great opportunity, and the luck that is involved in me and having Bill Simmons look at me and say, I want that kid to work for me and be the first employee of my new company and be the producer of my podcast. And I will respect his opinions and let him research for me. Like that's a once in a lifetime situation. I don't even like to give people advice because of how ridiculous that is. Like when Bill called me and told me that he wanted me to be his producer, I asked him if he was kidding, I thought he was, you know what I mean? Like I really did. I was like, what are you talking about? Because that was what it was to me. But also I will say, like, the greatest thing that you can ever, or only advice I can give to anyone, is that when I was in a TV, like at school, when we had our TV show, I wanted to learn how to run, I wanted to be the TD. I wanted to be the director. I wanted to run audio. I wanted to be, producing a certain block. I wanted to be the EP of the show. Like I wanted to do every single hat, or at least know what that hat does, so that if I was in a room and like I was at ESPN and they were like, we need someone to TD this, I could be like, I can cut cameras, and I would know what it looked like. And that's how it kind of happened at Grantland. I started cutting cameras for podcasts, and then they're like, well, do you know how to edit Premiere? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm editing podcasts. And then they're like, do you know how to use Pro Tools? And I'm like, no, but you can teach me. And then, Joe Fuentes, who ended up going over with Bill as well, is like, I'll teach you Pro Tools. So 2 days I spent at home editing podcasts that are already edited, then listening back to make sure that they were, edited right compared to the real version of it. And then they started giving me edits for the audio. So then when I could edit and cut and do everything, then I'm not just standing there with, my hands in my pants, not doing anything.
Well, there's a power to that, Tate, because we talk about this when people want to go into real estate, right? You often hire people to do all these jobs, but until you've put a toilet in yourself, it's easy to get ripped off. And just the power, by the way, of saying yes too. I mean, Bill must have seen the fact that you were the guy that goes, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. Fine. Give me more. What's it like working with Bill Simmons?
I think it's great in the empowerment department of things, right? Because like you just said, I mean, I went to Bill's house on a Friday. I delivered him posters because when I was driving out to LA for my internship, May 13th was the date. I got a call from Mallory Rubin, who's still at the Ringer. She was at Grantland at the time. She said, "Hey, Bill just got fired by ESPN. I don't know if you've seen this." I was in a Blockbuster in El Paso, Texas with my girlfriend at the time. And and she was like, "I think we should turn around." Right? Like, I think that we should turn around. This is not, and I went to Grantland. Bill wasn't there the 5 months I was there, but he had heard about me from, David Jacoby, who's on Jail and Jacoby. Now he had heard there's a PA that's like working hard and whatever. So when I went over there, he was like, "I kind of heard about you. What do you want to do?" I told him I wanted to do everything for myself. And I didn't know what I meant when I said that, but I just remember him asking me that. And that was the first thing that popped in my head. And that was on Friday, and it was his 46th birthday. He gave me the book of basketball. I told him I read it to make sure it was right. And he thought that was hilarious, that I was like that much of a basketball historian, that I was like, I don't trust him to know the story of basketball.
You don't trust Bill Simmons.
Yeah, I did not at all. The Boston Celtics perspective of basketball is not something that I put at the top of my list. But we came to an agreement that we both loved the ABA. We talked about Terry Pluto's book, Loose Balls. Anyway, this was all just a Friday. He wrote me a really nice note. He gave me $100 for helping move things. And then he called me on that Monday, said, "Hey, I got an audio board over here. It's not all set up." I drove over there. I set it all up. We tested out. And then that Tuesday morning, I recorded his podcast and did the first 353 Bill Simmons podcasts of the new Bill Simmons podcast, and launched 30 podcasts at the Ringer with Bill. And, I wanted to be a TV writer on Bill Simmons' HBO show. And that was what my first job offer was. And I ended up being the podcast producer and launching this whole network. And, Bill, I'm very grateful for Bill. Like I said, I got a great opportunity, and he believed in me. And he's always, even when people would push back on me early on, I had a lot of confidence issues, like talking on the air, because I would say something and it would just, it's on Reddit, and it's Reddit Bill Simmons, and they're like, "This guy's the biggest idiot in the world. How do we get him off the mic?" And, Bill encouraged me. He's like, "You grew up on Tobacco Road, basketball, talk about it. Like, don't be afraid to talk about it. Like, you have an expertise. Like, don't let these people get in your head about it." And I think that's why he's been so successful. Obviously there's a lot of quote unquote haters and pushback that happens out in the world. And you just have to know that you're coming from a good place with what you're saying. You're not trying to say anything malicious, and you're also unique, right? You're unique in your own voice, and we are all unique in our own voices. And I think that's the empowerment of Bill, right? He empowers people to be themselves.
I feel like, not to switch metaphors, but Jim Rome, have a take, don't suck.
Yeah.
When we last question, and this is something that I think also affects a lot of people listening. When do you realize it's time to go? Time for you to go and do your own thing, to create the Figures Network, begin rolling out your new stuff. When did you know that it was time to move on?
So I spent 4 years with Bill. I graduated May 10th, 2015. I drove out to Los Angeles May 11th, 2015. I was hired by Bill Simmons October 2015, and I worked with him until October of 2019. And during that whole process, it was I told myself when I started, I didn't want to be a podcast producer per se. And I said I was going to give myself, my dad, I give credit to my dad. I talked to him on the phone. He said, "Give it, a good college try, basically. Give it 4 years," right? Like, you don't know what it's going to look like. Bill's, invested in you. Give it a real try. And I did it for 4 years. I did Bill's podcast for 3 of those 4 years. I graduated from producing his podcast because I had so many other pods produced, and I was doing a talent and everything. When I made that step, then I wasn't working with Bill every single day. And that was sort of what I came to do anyway. At the Ringer. And once I was already independently operating as a talent and producer within the Ringer world, and I was detached from Bill, that was sort of the only reason that I would be there, to be honest with you. It was the work directly with Bill. And once it kind of got further away from that, I wanted to write some things that were not just sports stuff. If I did that under my current Ringer agreement, they would own it. I didn't want to have that situation come out. and put everybody in a weird spot. I'd been there exactly 4 years. I had this like weird moment of clarity where it was just like, I got this great opportunity, and now some other people can step into the ringer doors, and Bill can help build them up like he did for me, and I can go out on my own and try to build something that I'm proud of, right? I mean, I am proud of the ringer, and I'm proud of being a part of it, but it's not my thing. That's Bill's thing. And I'm excited to, like you said, with figures and with some of the other projects that we're working on now, I'm excited to kind of have some ownership and to point to and say, hey, I made that. That's my baby, and I'm proud of it. And I know Bill will be excited when I have that to show him as well, because it's good to see someone out of the nest.
Well, it's a great story. And I saw this minor league thing and I'm flipping through, what should we do with Tate for his last appearance here? And I thought, what a great thing to show you working your way through the minors and making all these moves. And I think just the stories around being the person that says yes, about the power of networking. And I love the fact that you don't call it networking, because I think people that really rock at networking don't think of it as networking. They they try to know people, and they try to get in the middle, be in the play, right? Be a piece of the play. So I think that's all powerful stuff too. Hey, in just a second, we're actually going to wrap this long show up and have our takeaway. But first, I want to say a big thanks to everybody who's used Tiller money, or at least tried it out to manage their money. This is what I used to manage my money, guys. And it is super fun because of the fact that it's a template inside a spreadsheet. Now, even though I'm a money geek, I'm not a spreadsheet guy. I move very fast. I like moving from project to project, much like Tate does, but I really don't want to dig into a spreadsheet. So what I was able to do with Tiller was to make things much more quick and easy. You press a button every day, automatically everything downloads into this template. If I don't like a category, I can merge it with another category, make it more simple. But if you're the opposite of me, if you're the average money nerd, you can have all the charts and graphs that you want. And it's the same subscription fee for both. And unlike some of the big boys out there who are constantly selling you stuff while you get your quote free subscription, you don't have to worry about that. So for a free 30-day trial, head to tillerhq.com/MWF for money with friends, tillerhq.com/MWF. Dude, it's been a fantastic last 4 months. What's our takeaway from going from the minors to the majors here?
My big takeaway on all of it is that to be grateful, right? That's all I can say. For all your situations in life, there's one thing I learned about 2020. 2019 was not a great year for me, or at least I thought so personally. I was very frustrated creatively. I felt very stagnant. I wanted to find a new outlet, but 2020 is a totally different world. You know what I mean? And you expect things to be exactly as they are, and they'll be there for you. But, you need to be present and be grateful for the things that you have in the moment. And not every day is promised. Tomorrow definitely is not promised. And I think that's all I can say. I mean, it's been a wild world in 2020, but I'm grateful to have this podcast and this platform. And it's been a great 4 months, Joe.
All those 2020 predictions, I go back and look at them now, and I'm like, who'd have thought?
What were we thinking?
I know, right? And my takeaway was, I'm gonna let Chris on our YouTube channel have my takeaway. He said that I need to thank you for giving the people what they want.
Yes, got to give the people what they want. Jalen Jacoby, that was my first PA job. They're the greatest. Jalen Jacoby are everything you see on TV. They're great people. They're great hosts. And it's a great show. So I appreciate that. Great note at the end.
Well, speaking of great shows, let's talk about college basketball, because that's right around the corner, and college basketball fans got some good news. You talk about college basketball on an ongoing basis with another basketball fanatic.
Yeah, that's right. Mark Titus, myself, Titus and Tate is the name of the podcast, twice a week. College basketball will be officially back November 25th, and we're there. Every single dribble, every single second, every single thing that happens off the court, we're talking about it. So Titus and Tate, please tune in.
It's a fantastic show. We'll link to it on our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com. By the way, just one thing, you guys got to talk about Michigan State basketball just more often.
We will.
More often.
We will. We love Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo loves us too. He told us, what did he call us? He called us something that was basically just like absolute buffoons this year at the Maui Invitational. And it wasn't buffoon, but it was even better word. And he walked away, and I was like, man, Tom Izzo must love us.
I think we're going to close it on that.
That's perfect.
That'll be the end. That's awesome. Oh my God, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
Chris. All right, man.